Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
For almost 50 years, Midway USA has been America's go-to source for just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Go to MidwayUSA.com to see our latest deals and promotions and take advantage of our super fast same-day shipping. If you need a cooler, a new fishing rod, another rifle, ammo, or a reloading press, you can find it all at MidwayUSA.com. Thanks for your business.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. And right now they have a 20% off turkey season sale. The code is right at the top. And while you're there, check out the brand new Camden hoodie. It is a lightweight, breathable material launched just in time for turkey season. So get over there and get yourself one of those. This week's podcast, we were talking, we're into that spring season where we're talking about getting ready for tack. We're talking about turkey hunting and spring food plots and habitat management. And so Jared VanHees, he's on here. He's he's one of the guys with Vitalized Seed. He does the Habitat podcast, and we talk about a couple of different things. One, creating some funnels, habitat management versus just food plotting, different trees and how they can be used, and then look into kind of what to do when you're looking at buying your first property, or if you're saying, like, I would like to have a place that I'm going to build, and how many acres is too much, how much is the minimum, and what would you be looking at on that sort of thing. So definitely a fun one, definitely very timely. And Jared is going to be speaking actually at the 2025 Deer Hunter Podcast Collective, and that's that live podcast that they do up there in Mayo, Michigan. The first one that they had, we were up there with the boys from the Fair Chase, as well as the Michigan Gone Wild fellas. And Michigan Gone Wild is going to be up there again this year. Habitat podcast is going to be up there. I'm not sure who else is going to be up. Hutchie from the Deer Camp podcast, he's going to be up there. He's one of our Patreons, good friend of ours. So definitely check that out. You can go over to the Deer Hunter Podcast webpage and get tickets. They're going fast, but there are some still left. So definitely check that out. But like I say, this podcast here is one that's going to be super helpful for guys that are out there, making that next improvement on their property, kind of like what they can do. But in the meantime, go over, give our partners some love. Obviously, Huntworth. Latitude, you can use code BHC, save 15% over there. Big Shot Targets, BCP, 10%. And, even though it's not Big Shot bought Delta McKenzie, we are playing with that Quivar app on some of the targets, and it is really cool. So if you haven't checked that out, go see it in person. And for the Muskegon Bowman Club dinner, we've got that coming up. There's tickets available on that website. I think we're going to have one of those targets that we are as one of our raffle prizes. So really excited, and it's going to be a chance to check that out. So definitely go over there, check out that if you see them at your local vendors or whatever. But again, big shot targets, you can save 10% using BCP. BHC 15 at Painted Arrow, you can save on some of their new stuff that they've got out, as well as Genesis 3D. They've got a code for Patreons. And then Canadia and Zinger, as always, those guys holding it down. They have a new kind of more budget-friendly option for guys who don't like that full outsert style. They got some changes there. Definitely, those guys are great people. And I was talking with Brian about shooting Zingers for trad, and they've got some like super helical ones that they're using. So I'm going to have to get my hands on some of those and give that a shot. But, you know, as always, guys, we appreciate you listening, following along, supporting the show. And this one's fun. A good friend of mine, and you guys are going to love it. Enjoy the episode. All right, everybody. Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And, you know, we're getting into, you know, that strange spot where it's turkey season. Then we start to talk about spring food plots, total archery challenge, getting your bow back out for those of you who don't shoot winter leagues, that sort of thing. And Jared VanHees with Habitat Podcast, Vitalized Seed. We're going to talk about some of that stuff right now. So how you been, Jared?
I've been good, Adam. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you again.
Yeah. It seems like we were just sharing Jack's Pizzas and 9,000 beers at the condo at ATA.
Yeah, that was a great time, and we stayed up too late. But man, those pizzas were clutch, weren't they?
that was amazing. When you showed up with those, I never thought I'd like to see a frozen pizza more in my lifetime. So it was great.
That was a great day.
Have you been shooting your bow?
You know what? I almost shot it last night. I've been on a work, and I didn't, so no. But I've been on a work trip, and then I came home, and I'm like, it is really nice out. I should shoot my bow. And I ended up doing some yard work instead, so not yet.
Yeah. We shoot winter leagues, and my work schedule's like on and off. I've been shooting about 50% of the leagues, and I've been shooting my trad bow quite a bit. And I've got my daughter, so we have a indoor 3D every Sunday, and I just shoot that drop in, but I've been bringing my daughter, and she's getting into it. I don't know if she's necessarily getting into it, but she's definitely enjoying it. And then my father-in-law, he's got his trad bow out, and he's getting like re-energized because he doesn't shoot our leagues. He has the most backwards mentality. He's like, I'm old. I'm just saving my joints. I don't want to waste all my good shots. I don't want to shoot my arm out. Instead of strengthening it up, you know, he says, I don't want to blow it out. But shooting with his granddaughter and shooting the trad has been good. So it's been a lot of fun. But I just ask because, you know, it's getting really nice out, and then you're going to have a lot of habitat projects, and I believe you're going to the Total Archery Challenge, and unless you have a really big arrow budget, you might consider dusting her off.
Yeah, that's true, and I'd like to, you know, shoot more anyways. Like I'd like to be able to be more confident. I'm not a terrible shot when it comes to target archery. I get pretty excited when a deer comes in, so. I will be adding. I've been shooting no peep sight for the last 2 seasons on my Matthews, and I use a nose button, and I have a solid anchor point. So I do have some other points of contact, but I'm gonna go back to the peep. I can shoot all day long in the yard just fine, but when that deer comes in and I'm drawing back, I'll have the wrong eye open or whatever. Right? It's just like extra crap you don't need to deal with. So I was going to go to the Boyne Tech this year. Ended up bailing on that. My son's birthday is that Saturday, and we're leaving Friday to go out of town for his birthday. And I usually spend the morning with him and then head up to TAC. But I may try to head up to Crystal at least. Which one are you headed to?
So you are very familiar because you had the luxury, we'll call it, of being right above us. But we got our normal condo, the one we've had every year that we've been at the Boyne Tack, which is about the perfect spot as far as location wise, and really excited about that. But I think I'm going to do the same thing. I think I'm going to bring my daughter up to Crystal just to shoot the kids course, and just kind of see the spectacle that it is. And for anybody that's out there that's listening and they're closer to one of these events than the other, we always say it, but I would truly encourage you to just go up there for one day, if you can, because that is like, just to see it, just to feel the energy or whatever is definitely worth it. And she, she's young and she'll have a ball shooting, but the hard part is going to be that she's going to be like, Dad, are you going to talk to everybody? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sure you get that too.
Oh yeah, it's a blast. You described it right with energy. Like, it just feels good when you're there. All the guys, like-minded guys like us, and I've been to a lot of them, so it's gonna be weird to miss it. But that's a good idea. Maybe I should grab Easton and his little compound. We bought a little diamond something or another for Christmas. Get him flinging some arrows. That'd be worth going up for. And then again, talking to everybody, I'm gonna end up doing that too. So.
Yeah, and I think the thing is like I think there's twofold. It's one thing when you're out in the backyard shooting, and sometimes it can seem like, and I know this, I have to like really like temper my words and how I say things. Because even yesterday, she got a new bow. She actually, from our podcast that we did with Jake Downs, he was giving away a bow, and it was for kids to send in a story. So she sent in her story, and his kids picked her to win this bow. Wow. And she's pretty pumped, but she's shooting it, and it's a different bow. She's learning it, and I'm like, well, you need to. And I'm like, and so it always seems like you're dadding or like you're parenting or you're trying to correct him. And I'm saying, like, I don't mean you. I mean, like, when we shoot our bows, like when I shoot, this helps. We need a good anchor so that we can make the same shot every time. And so you really have to do that. And so going up there and seeing everybody else shooting and just like, again, that energy being involved. And that's one of the things is on that Sunday night league, there's other kids that are shooting. And there's adults that are, I mean, this is just trad, and it's from 10 or 15 to 25 yards. And arrows are hitting the floor, hitting the wood, missing. And so it's like watching other people be okay with not being perfect is good too. And I think that's the thing. It's like, she just wants to be involved with what I'm doing and making it fun and like exciting is, definitely. I see it that better for like the longevity of her in archery versus me saying, you need to do this, but that's not what I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good advice right there. And I think those local clubs and things you get into, our club here in Brighton, or Livingston County, has a really good youth archery program from what I've heard. I've shot there a couple times, but I'm going to try to get better at bringing the kids out to that on a Saturday or Sunday. It seems like I'm never in town when they do it, but got to make it happen, Yeah. Because they're all shooting with their friends and their peers. It's a little different than Dad coaching them in the backyard. So probably more exciting.
Yeah. And the same thing is like, if they see other people doing it, and they can have peers that are doing it, and they can see kids their age, so that it's not just like Fortnite and YouTube, and
Great
so
point.
there's a balance there. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun. And like I said, I think that she'll enjoy, just, and you got to, at least for me, like, look at it as it's something that I would do anyways. And then it gives my wife a reprieve. So I'm like, because there's no way in hell she's going up there. That would be like her worst nightmare. But, so take a road trip with the daughter, get the snacks, go up there, shoot some arrows, have to talk to a couple guys or so, but, it'd be fun. So
I love it.
For you, what is this like? What does your timeline look like for like habitat projects throughout the year? Because we look at things over on our side from deer season, turkey season, all of that sort of stuff. But from a habitat, like you can't be out. I mean, I guess you could, but you don't want to be out there cutting trees and doing stuff in these seasons. And then at the same time, you got to plant, you got to do all this. So like, what is your year shaping up to be?
Yeah, great question. I think right now I'm really in the thick of ordering trees to plant here in the next month or two whenever they arrive, or I go pick them up. So that's part of the planning stage. I say a lot right now is planning. Food plot seed, order that, get that in, switchgrass, whatever I need for that, ordered that yesterday. So a lot of planning going on right now for when we're out of the total cold season here, and it's actually getting pretty nice out. Frost seeding right now, guys are putting clover down, with the frost, which allows that seed to work into the ground for you with the freeze and thaw of the soil. And then last but not least, cutting trees, probably the most important and most amount of work is chainsaw work. And I like to do that. I'll do it whenever, but I don't usually do it in deer season, so I guess not whenever. But I mean, I'll do it when it's 90 degrees and mosquitoes, but it's a lot nicer to do it right now. So, and right now you can see what your timber is going to look like without any leaves on the trees. So if you're trying to make an area thicker or a bedding area, you know what you're going to have come fall. Because leaves can be deceiving sometimes with how thick you think a piece actually is. Those are probably the main heavy hitters there.
So when you talked about planning and getting trees ordered and all that stuff, I'm assuming you're talking about fruit trees or mass trees of some sort. Where are you? Because this is something on our property, and you've been up there, like that we've talked about and we've considered, and I think that's something that my dad is going to do this year. But where are your like ideal placements for these trees? Because it seems like, yeah, it's great to have like a destination food source, something that's regenerative, that for us, like our grandkids can use. It's not a real quick fix. But also I don't think that you want, or it's great for us as hunters to have a mini orchard on our property. So how are you putting these in like strategically as far as like a habitat plan?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It depends on what kind of trees, because I just ordered fruit trees, and I also ordered Norway spruce, conifers, and then I also need to order some cedars still. So I'm going to do different things with all those trees. And when we do it with a plan, like a habitat plan in place, it's great because we can put them where we want to. Like on your piece up north, we found some really awesome apple trees towards the end of our walk. And one of them was a pretty good spot we could hunt. But some of it, sometimes you don't like where they are. They're usually by the old homestead, and it's by a road or a driveway. So that can be tough. So right now, the fruit trees, I like to line the edges of food sources where they'll get full sun. That's really important is sunlight. People think they can get some sun. And all these trees can live with some sun, but they're not gonna grow very fast, and they're not gonna get to the mass point as soon as you'd like them to. So I'll go in on the edges of food plots. I do the edges because I don't want any glyphosate to wind drift and hit them while I'm spraying food plots or anything like that. And I also like to do them, again, if I can, in full sun, near stand locations. You never know a few years down the road when that thing's dropping apples or crab apples or pears, and you have it 25 yards in the right spot. You don't know which buck's going to find that comfortable enough to start visiting that in the early season and give you an opportunity. So that's kind of what I do with the fruit trees. If you have a bunch of them, you can do mini orchards and think of it as more of a macro level habitat plan. Like up north, I'm going to plant a bunch of trees because, well, there aren't very many fruit trees within a couple square miles. So if I can, look at that on the grand scale, bring these deer in just to get them closer to start with, I'm going to do that as well. And then when it comes to like conifers, cedars, Norway spruce, you can use those to screen the road off, which I'm going to do some of. And then I'm also going to plant those in the timber bedding areas that we cut with a chainsaw, like I just talked about. Once I get the big trees on the ground, I'll go in and plant spruce and cedar amongst those. So if you imagine in 5 years, it'll just be a thick, nasty thermal cover mess. And those are in strategic spots with a little bit of elevation where deer usually like to bed or potentially would bed.
So when you're doing these fruit trees and you're trying to put them, I think this is more towards like stand locations, because the edges of food sources, food plots, all of that stuff, I think is fairly self-explanatory. But
Sure.
at stand locations, what are you talking about? What is your thought process, and what have you seen as far as like mortality rate? Because if I put all my eggs in one basket, one tree on a property that I can't get to all the time to make sure that it's, that I can love this tree and I can, do all the things that I need to do. What is your thought process on how many to plant each time or that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm familiar. How far is your property away?
7.5
7?
hours.
Yeah, and mine's like 4. So I definitely get it. I think there's the way I used to look at it and the way I look at it now. I used to look at it, plant as many as you can, cheaper the better, slam them in, and we'll get something. Well, deer tend to eat them, they dry out, they die, they're not very tough, etc. Now I'm the opposite. I just bought 12 trees recently, and it was like, $600, expensive, nice, older trees, 3-year-old trees. So my thought now is,
Hunting is not easy. It never has been. It takes dedication, motivation, a lot of patience, and quality gear. If you manage a food plot, put up stands, or need just one more game camera, we can help at MidwayUSA.com. We opened our doors in 1977 and continue to put customers first by offering super fast, same-day shipping. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
I'm going to take the time. I'm going to put them in correctly. I'm going to use some tips and tricks over the years that I've learned. I'm going to fence them correctly and go with a more mature tree that's already has a better chance of making it. And that way, deer bite a couple branches off or whatever, they'll be fine. That's kind of my go-to. And now, again, if you're that far away and you have this investment going in and it's a dry spring or dry summer, you might have to make a trip. You might have to call a neighbor or try to figure something out to where, you just take a hit one and really bust your butt and make it happen. But I think the older tree would be easier survival rate on those for sure.
And how long do you have to protect them? Because I know, there's trees that they planted, like before my time up there, and I feel like they still have fences around them and guy lines to keep them up and to try to keep the deer away. And granted, with the winters up there, with everything that's going on and the lack of food at times to bears, yeah. Maybe they're just being overly protective. But there's been wires on these trees for 30 years.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly where those ones were that you're mentioning, to try to picture it in my head. But I would just leave them on. Why not? Leave the cages on. The tubes are a little bit different. If you're planting a tree with a tree tube, they're going to grow out top of the tube, because that tube promotes growth vertically. And after a few years, they kind of get beat up. You can take them off. But I mean, then a buck's going to start rubbing it. Some of the apple trees I never caged or tubed on my old property, they get rubbed up, smoked. All the branches are broken off and leaves are eaten off. I'm like, well, he has to try really hard to survive, So I'd leave him on for a while. So that way, your better chances protect your investment. Now, talking 10, 15 years down the road, and that thing's pretty robust, you can probably take them off. But
No, like I said, I'm just wondering for that, because again, it is an investment, and I've looked at some of the packages, and you have the little trees where you could buy a dozen of them for $200 or something like that, and then there's ones where they're $150 a piece, and it's like and I think there has to be some more care going into planting those ones because you got to make sure that that's deep enough for the roots and all the things. But just curious as to like the thought process, because that's the one thing I think that probably, at least in my mind, in a perfect world, has the ability to show the most dividends with the least amount of work and investment. But it's the one thing that you have to do right the first time, because like you said, if they're not in the right spot or things like that, then, it just maybe does keep some deer around. So I say that's when we talk about like fruit trees and stuff like that, it's like you want to make sure you do it right the first time. But what does that look like? So.
Yep, that's exactly it. Just take your time, follow the correct rules with, planting depth and some of the roots on a apple tree, or even usually a conifer can have you don't want them to jay back upward. Like there's all kinds of little nuances that you want to make sure you do right. And that way you have fruit sooner too, right? You don't have to wait 5 or 6 years. You might wait 3 years or whatever. So, it's not exactly less work. It's just different work to go with the less older trees.
Yeah. So what are the other things in like the habitat projects and stuff? And like, it's so strange because over the years, my idea of what like that looked like, I always just I thought, although they're different words, I thought they were synonymous: habitat work and food plots. I thought always that it was just the same thing. It was like, oh, they're just doing food plots. And now seeing, all the timber stand improvement and all this other stuff that goes into it, and, maybe a little bit of hinge cutting in there, in which our friend, sadly, Nick Percy, he was like, I hate hinge cutting, and I'll show you why, and you just need to tie them over and all this stuff. One of the things that's always stuck with me with hinge cutting is I always think about Nick. So, but some other things have come up. Like I read the Bobby Worthington book, and he talks so much about funnels, and he talks about if you have access to property and things like that. And I used to think about it in terms of like the Dan Infalt way, where it could be just like cheating, right? You go and you put up some snow fence where the deer can't get through. And I guess maybe from that end, it always had like some sort of negative connotation in my mind. Not that it wouldn't work, but it just didn't seem fair, or that's just kind of what I had in my mind. And reading that book, that's what he looks at on all these properties. And when he's looking at topography, when he's looking at everything, and the more that I talk to really successful hunters, and obviously that's, you want to find that rut funnel, whatever. What ways or how are you utilizing habitat management to kind of create or to use and funnel these deer? I know you talked about it a little bit on your small property that you had with some of the shooting lanes or tractor paths or whatever that you had done. So on like a big scale, all the way down to like each specific property, like what are some options to kind of create funnels or look for on that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say topography is important, especially when you have pretty topographical features. Like a saddle or a holler that comes up between. You can kind of tell where these deer are going to move, and then you can enhance that maybe with felling some trees on sides of that, or mock scrapes within that. What I tend to work with more often than not is fairly flat ground. At least the farms that I own. The northern piece isn't flat, but the one down here now, the new one down here, is very flat. And the whole thing was logged this past September. So everything is very random at this point, right? There's really all there are random two tracks from the log skidder going every which direction. But there's a little topographical feature through the property that runs east-west. And I mean, it's probably a 5-foot rise. That's it, over the whole property. And that's where I'm focusing on one of my pinch points. Another one is going to be there's two little pockets that hold water for most of the year, and there's a kind of a trail that runs right between them. That's going to be another one. And how I tend to manipulate those even further would be, okay, the property was just logged. I think they took 1,200 trees off 40 acres. So it cut pretty hard. So there are treetops everywhere. I'm going to drag these treetops around or lift them and move them around to help force or manipulate or slightly push a deer in a certain direction. Now, with the whole snow fence comment and the cheating comment, I think it's interesting because deer can jump snow fence. And if you want to use an 8-foot fence and you want to funnel them down into a little gap, not very often is a Michigan mature buck going to say, this is a good idea to walk through this gap, especially if he's smelled you there ever before. So while there might be merit to that, doing it is harder than talking about it. So I think every advantage we can get in terms of legal use is great. And I don't use fencing. I've seen people use fencing, but I like to do it with hinge cut trees, down trees, brush after clearing a food plot. I push it up against the side of the edge, and then you can cut a gap in that. And as long as you're not making this too choked down where they feel, like they're stuck, like I think the fence would, it's careful on how you do it, but they'll use them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just as far as the fence is concerned, you can look at it. I mean, if you've ever been on any sort of public land that's near private land that has fencing, and especially some of these old, like even some of the old big plots of land that used to be homesteads and farmed out by these big farms, there's a fence that these deer, turkeys, or anything could jump, but where it's broken, they just go through that because it's just easier. True. So while they can do that, and I think that's more like to the point, is just kind of like directing them, like you said. When you are setting up these properties, or when you look at properties, how much, I don't know if it would be like micro or macro manipulation are you doing? Right now, what you just outlined is you kind of have not necessarily a blank slate, but kind of a blank slate, because you're kind of starting over. But on a property that, you're just kind of walking into on the other side, where there's already, these established deer movement patterns and things like that, and you're going in there. What are you doing on those types of properties to up your odds of success?
Yeah. So you mean like properties that I consult on that I don't own, that like are people looking for some advice? Okay. Yeah. That can be a little bit both. I like to walk it, and I have to walk it first, like I did with you. And what I normally recommend, because most guys, almost every property I'm on, the timber needs to be cut. So that's usually it's always a macro level, but it's usually the first thing to get done. I walked a guy, Billy, in January. He's already out there cutting trees, mid-March. So he's getting after it. Once that a lot of that work gets done, you're going to change the deer movement a little bit. You're probably going to suck more in because they like eating all the tops. So it can be a little tricky, and that's why some of the stuff you like to do in stages, or do the the stuff that takes the longest to show benefit first, which is logging. So when I'm on a place, I will macro recommend, cut whatever logger can come in here and take that you're okay with and give you some value for. The more the merrier, because once people do cut, most of them don't cut hard enough, and it's hard to understand what that is. Because it makes a mess and people don't like a mess. So once we get it cut hard enough, you'll start to see some deer. You can kind of guess what they're going to do based on what's around there. And then you make that path of least resistance you talked about with some of these other features we mentioned, and the deer will just start to use them. So, my buddy Sam in Illinois, he cuts a hole in his fence, and those deer pour right in that gap, right? Because that works. But you can do that with these treetops, with these hinge cuts, and kind of funnel out where they're going to go right after the logging's done. So you can draw this on a map. Hey, I want you to come through here, client of mine, and come and, blow a path through here. Why don't you come out here? You're going to have two meet right at one spot. And that's kind of the beginning of a funnel on paper. At the same time, you can tell somebody to begin the logging. So that's pretty much how that's done. And normally you want to look at topography to make sure that's on like a little higher point versus a low valley where your wind's going to screw you every time. So there's other things you look at among that. But normally when I walk a place, I can tell where it's going to happen after seeing enough places or scouting. Same way when you're scouting public. Where do you set up where you think it's going to happen? So it's kind of all culmination of being on some properties and where you think it's going to go down.
And so when you're doing this sort of stuff and sort of consulting and our property is, just one that that we both have experience with, right? So you've seen it, but on established properties, and I'm using this for anybody, but so like I'm sure you get contacted by guys who have like these small food plots. They have them here, but they might not be in the best. I mean, it's just listed the best place to put a food plot, right? And everybody kind of wants to hunt over that food plot because that's where the deer are. But sometimes, you blow them out going in and out. They're not always the greatest spots.
Yes.
I guess, what are your recommendations for like hunting off of those? Because we talk about pinch points and stuff like that, and like inside corners and things like that. But what tricks have you used to kind of kill deer off or up the odds off of the food plots instead of being right on top of the, field edge type stuff?
Yeah. Like you said, it's when you're right on the field edge, it's tough. It's tough to get out at night or to get in the morning while they're out there and they see your headlamp coming and they hear you shimmy up the tree. It's just tough. First of all, I like to line those field edges with a big screen of switchgrass, miscanthus, something that's gonna, if you did need to get there or get by the field to hunt back further between the field and bedding, at least you can sneak by it. Some of these properties, like on my 15 acres, it was only 30 yards between my big food plot and my access, but I made it thick enough where I could just be quiet and get behind it. So that's one way I'll treat a big field. And then I'll, find out where they're bedding. Usually a swamp or a big hinge cut area or forested area that's really thick is where they're going to bed. Cover's king. So in between those two items, you'll find transitions, you'll find edges, and a combination of kind of what we talked about last time with maybe these mowed paths that you end up sowing with clover and chicory. Maybe there's a couple fruit trees that are same location in between the two, and you just try to path of least resistance them right to you.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
But I always will have a mock scrape there, an active mock scrape that will give them that 10 minutes before dark where that buck's ready to get out there, but he's not going out to the field till dark, a reason to stand up and kind of mosey on through there. So it's usually a combination of things, but if it's going to be on flat ground from A to B, I'm going to just enhance it with all the little things that we do at these stand locations to make that the one spot they go to check out before they go out to the field.
So when you were talking about that and you said, I like to know where they're bedding, and it just makes me, in my head, I just automatically think like, well, you just create a bedding area over here. Here's your food.
Sometimes
it's got to catch them in the middle. But so when you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm going to ask you something that you probably can't answer, but I want to ask it anyways.
Great. Thanks, Adam.
Is it just that easy? Like, so when you're doing all this habitat stuff, is it just that easy where I can create a bedding over here, I can create food here, I can put in some mock scrape in the middle, set up on that on the right wind, and I have this property, and in your case, maybe you have 2 or 3 properties, and it's because that's the way that it, I don't want to say that it's like portrayed, but that's the way that public land guys think. All right. And we see success of guys who have private land, and it's the must be nice and all of these things. So is it just that easy?
No way. No way.
Why not?
I know. Just get between bedding and food and set up, right? Well, I mean, it might be for a doe or a younger deer if that's what you're after. It is easier, in my opinion. No offense. I've been there. I've shot many of those. But I think these more mature deer that think different. You've all talked about that. I listen to your podcast. They have a sixth sense, right? You can mow a straight path between the bedding and the food and sit on the edge of it. And you think you're going to kill them? I don't think so. I try to give them cover all the way, all the time, all the way. That's, I think, a part that people miss is constant security cover whenever that deer's in daylight, or he's not going to be there in daylight. So if that means your autumn olive bushes are growing up, people hate those. They're invasive. Deer bed in them. If the switchgrass it could be standing corn. Bucks that I like to hunt need cover. A lot of my clients like to hunt need cover all the time. So no, it's not that easy. I have some nice deer on the wall, but I'd have a lot more if it was that easy, for sure.
Now, I want to get into some like acquiring property type stuff. And you've got a couple now and you've bought and sold. I want to start by asking, because I think about it in terms of is it that easy? Right?
Yep.
What's the perfect size of property for a guy, or maybe say 2 guys, to hunt and manage and whatever? You have experience with small properties, you own some bigger properties, and then you've walked some giant properties, and even our property, but our property is too big to just be we're going to do these 5 things and it's going to be set up.
Yeah, great Great question. That's a hard one. And everybody will say that it depends answer, right? But I'll speak from what I know with my schedule, and that should be far on one end because I'm pretty busy. We do it to ourselves. So I was happy with one person on 15 acres, 15 acres as a minimum. But again, with the purchasing part of it, that 15 acres was next to a large swamp. That was huge. Like if that wasn't there, it wouldn't have been the same property, in my opinion. Um, all the neighbors ended up hunting the both the top and the bottom edges of the 15 acres, and they were on 50 and 60. And but still, they couldn't get to the deer could still get through me without the bad wind or the bad pressure. And what I mean by 15 acres is I was able to get out there. I could do food plots. I did I did everything. It was like my proving grounds, my learning area for 5 years. It was a lot of work, but it was manageable. Bring the kids out, whatever. I had an ATV. That's all I had, and I would get all the work done on that. Now with a bigger property with one person, that's all just like compounded times 5, times 6. It's a lot to deal with. Um, So I think minimum, I would say a good one would be, 15, 20 acres, one guy, have some fun, learn what you're doing, and not be too overwhelmed. And don't order too many trees at once because that'll kill you too. So, um, I think was there a second part to that question that I didn't answer yet?
Well, so I just wanted to know, like, when you're looking at it, like
Mm-hmm.
in your mind, you're like, oh, these guys have 600 acres in Iowa. Like, it must be great. Or,
I
but
mean, it would be.
but it would be a lot to have to figure out because it's Iowa, because of bucks and genetics and hunting culture. It would be different than in Michigan. But
Mm-hmm.
like for so for somebody's first property, what would be too much? What would be not enough? It kind of was the thought process because, and then like you said, that swamp was a big deal. Like monetarily, sometimes you see a property and you're like, oh man, that's super cheap. It's 15 acres around hunting land, but it might not be the right property. Is it worth it to try? Those types of things. And that's kind of basically what I was leading into is
Sure.
for yourself, like what is your process for acquiring a property now that you have multiple?
Okay, let me pause that and finish the other part then. So I think it all depends on the property, which is the all depends part that I didn't want to get to. Like I saw 10 acres the other day in Jackson County for I think 60 or 65 grand. That is a decently high price per acre, but it's probably where the market's at right now. But that's affordable for someone. Now, you put that on a 20 or 30-year mortgage, that's gas money type property. So, but then I looked at it and I immediately wrote it off and kept moving because of where it was. It was behind. It was like where two roads came together at a point. It was kind of in that block in the middle, but below it was a big open ag field. So really, you have houses on 3 sides and a large open ag field on the other side. There's no cover. There will be nothing there in December, including the deer. So if the smaller the piece, the more definitive, the more careful you have to be with what you're looking at. Which I would also say I make more micro decisions habitat wise on a smaller piece. Where then would lead me to your question about how big is too big. Well, then I start to go more of the macro level at first while I learn the place. Timber the whole place, get some big food plots in if you're in a spot without agriculture like I am up north, and start to learn what they're doing, and then go to the micro side or the more intricate stuff after that. So I do a small property and a big property totally differently personally. with my way of executing a habitat plan. I do, again, more macro on the big stuff first, just because it's too much to do with me and one chainsaw. So now, what do I look for in a property? Everything I've bought, the first piece was 15 acres. It's probably half timber, half open field, low ground, and that was nice. The other two since then have been pure timber properties, a 70 and a 40, and good and bad. There's pros and cons, right? So nice oaks and nice maples give you a nice timber bill. That's great. Invest that back into some equipment or the property or whatever. But to make a field in what is all woods requires some equipment and time and or money to hire somebody to do it who has the bulldozer and the excavator. So that is kind of a pain, but there was some timber value there, so kind of a double-edged sword. I like something with some water on it, just because water normally means the open area in the sky, and it normally means thick brush around there, and normally means bedding. For instance, up north, there's a nice little creek that runs through the bottom with some hemlocks, and that's where a lot of the deer bed, to get out of the wind, get out of the cold, all that. And that piece up there was just so diverse when I walked it that it's so weird, it's so steep. Diversity is really what the answer to your question is. The 40 down here, it's in the middle of a big, probably a 2 square mile loop. So I know that that's the core, that's the best security, the furthest back from any of the houses to get to. And that's why I looked into that one. And it was all oak timber too, so that didn't hurt when we logged it. Again, I think all three properties, now that I'm saying this out loud and going through these, would resort to being near or having the best cover, on it. There might be better cover 2 properties over, and you're not going to beat that. But if you can give something similar, you might hold a different buck, right? Or you might hold a spike or a 4-point for a year or two, because he's getting kicked out of the better cover down the road. So I think that'd be what I would look for. I do like timber value now, and I like less houses touching the property.
Does I guess how much does the area, because when I was just listening to DJ Riley's podcast when he was going through with talking about Todd Prignitz, right? And he was talking about the, like, in Iowa or Kansas, and the difference in thought process from Michigan and Wisconsin guys, where we think that you have to have these things on a property. Like, a property has to be like this to hold deer or whatever. But his main thing was like, if it has good neighbors, then, that's a thing. So how much does, like, you'd mentioned like Jackson County, I'm assuming Hillsdale County, like, how much does the area or deer density, how much are you looking at, like, harvest statistics or record books or any of this stuff when you're looking at properties? Or are you just looking at this property looks like it's in an area where I can make it something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't look at it very much. Because really you can create most of what we need. You did mention neighbors there. You cannot create good neighbors if you don't have, you can try to lead by example. You can try to teach them or get on their good side. Bad neighbors can ruin any property, any size. I don't care. Even some of my people I talk to who have thousands of acres in Iowa, they got a bad neighbor, they resent him and lament about him all the time, right? So it's like that's never going to change, and that's something you might know before you buy, or you might not. I would say, as far as like statistics in areas of the state, southern part of Michigan is going to be better than the northern part, like you mentioned. That's obvious, so I know that. There's areas, in the middle of the state that are maybe a little tougher, Roscommon County, but there's still some deer there. So you kind of have that. I would just, I also consider like how close to am I to get there and work on this piece? You know, I've had anything from 4 hours to an hour and a half to 20 minutes. And really, that's a big part of it too. I really don't focus on the harvest statistics all that much, more so than what's already been ingrained in my head for living here for, 37 years.
Yeah, like I say, I'm just curious because I don't know why it came up recently, but I was talking to some other people and they were talking about like, I'd really like to get a piece of property where I could go and bring the kids and I could, have that deer camp vibe to kind of reconnect with like, what we did when we were kids, all that stuff. But I thought, how in the world do you, like, where do you even start? And especially like with real estate prices, housing prices, everything nowadays, it's like if you find something that looks like it's nice, turnkey, it's probably out of your price range. I mean, for many people. So like that starting point is, what I think begs the question of like, what does it take? And I think that's that's kind of what I'm trying to get out of this is like, what are like the bare minimums, to some degree? Because it's so weird because even as, public land guys, you can go to a place and you're like, well, I'm just going to waste to sit here and see. And then you shoot a buck or, see good deer. You stumble into a place that you never would have walked because it just didn't, on the map or whatever, didn't look good. But I feel like when people are trying to sell you something, they're going to show you all of the rubs on the property. They're going to show you all that. And it's already being marketed to the hunter versus, just a land buyer or logger.
Yeah, and that's very true. And I've hunted public land my whole life. I shot my first buck on public land, and I still hunt public land every year. So scouting is pretty important. If you to see past the salesman, right, or the whoever's showing you the property, you have to know what you're looking at, and you're only going to know what you're looking at by doing the research and walking ground. For instance, before I bought my first piece, I bet I looked at listings online for 2 years before I even went out and walked the first one. And then by that time, I only walked like 3 or 4 before I found one. I'm like, this will work. Let's try it. So I would study the listings all the time. And you're right, they're getting ridiculous now, and it's harder to get into it. But it's going to be harder in 5 years and harder than that in 10 years. So bare minimum, I bought 15 acres and I worked with a credit union and I was able to put 5% down, or I'm sorry, 10% down instead of 20% down. Usually Greenstone or anywhere else is 20% down on the loan. So, $100,000 piece of property, which you can't even really find anymore. You got to have 20 grand sitting there. So a credit union under 20 acres would do 10% down. That made it affordable. That worked. I figured that out by calling people. And then I would try to go get pre-approved and see what your actual numbers are. And then you know what you can afford. And I say that because when the deal does come up, which they come up every now and then, you'll be ready to execute. I still look at every listing 3 different realtors send me in my email every day. Just interested in it, and prices are ridiculous. And but unless you get started now, it'll be harder down the road. You can do some of the places I used to hunt around here, 5 acres, 3 acres. It doesn't have to be a big piece to start.
Well, and I think that's one of the things too that gets, I don't want to say like misconstrued or misrepresented, where, you can kill a buck, great bucks on.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a hamburger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Fred Warner, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Abercrombie has the new suits you need, plus all the collared shirts to go with them. The Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit is the only suit you'll ever need for any occasion. Available in slim, classic, and athletic. Pair with a collared classic. Go with a soft, easy-to-wear sweater polo or a comfortable long-sleeve shirt. With so many different fits and fabrics, you can make a look that's completely your own. Add the Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit and new collared shirts to every occasion this season. Shop online or in store.
1 acre of timber. Well, that 1 acre of timber is in a 200-acre cornfield. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't, it's not, you're not buying that 1 acre. And, you know, if you are buying 1 acre, the acre that's next to it probably has a house on it or a trailer or, you know, all of these other things. So, like I said, that's why I wanted to like have that conversation just to say, like, you know, what does it take? And I fully understand that there's, you know, to do what we do up for our Patreon camp. I mean, I own, I don't know, but maybe 1,000 square feet. But we use it as a jumping off point to have a hell of a good time. But to be able to do some of the habitat stuff and all that, and to be able to, I don't even want to say like it's like a sanctuary, but somewhere where you can bring your kids and not have to worry about, you know, all the things that go along with public land. And I don't even know why that's necessarily a thing, because I hunt tons of public land and I don't really have like that many bad experiences. I think maybe it's just like trying to hedge your bets on a good experience, like where you can control the environment. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I would say there's advantages and disadvantages to both. You know, public land, you don't like the certain 40-acre piece you're on, you can keep walking. Or private, you can't do that. So you get a trespassing ticket. So that's why I think all the habitat stuff to soup up these private parcels, 10 acres, 40, 300. And then you mentioned something there, low pressure, adding in, you know, not a lot of people, the correct wind. I don't let my wind blow onto my property. If I can, when I'm hunting, I like it to blow off onto the neighbor. Sorry. And that's where, you know, just a low human sense and low pressure is usually probably where you find the good public hunting spots too. Right. So, and everybody, I think everybody, or the reason I wanted it is I just know that right now there's a spot I can go that's set up. Me and my kids can go into, shouldn't run into any BS. I'm limited on time. So I want to make the biggest bang for my buck, time-wise, when I can. And it's a good investment. So it's kind of a double win there. But you can definitely have a great time on public. I do it every year. And with the kids, you just might have to walk a little further, which is fine. People are lazy. Use that to your advantage and just go see some beautiful ground. I like that sometimes more, doing those mid-October public bow hunts. Just exploring and testing your woodsmanship and seeing if you do know what the heck you're talking about, right? So that's kind of fun. I had a great time doing it up north this year, so I'm sure you guys' camp was great too.
Yeah, it was the best one yet. So
awesome.
It was great. So what do you got going on new with Vitalize Seed? I know you got some new stuff coming out in the works, right?
Yeah, definitely. We came out with, let's see, 3 new mixes this spring. So a lot of our listeners were saying, hey, why don't you guys just make a straight clover mix? We love what you're doing. We love your message, your ethos, but we buy our clover from here. So finally we came out with 2 new clover mixes and a Nebraska mix. So Premium Clover Plus, which is a 6-pound bag of perennial and annual clovers plus chicory. That's great for frost eating. It's going to come back for like 5 years. Then the second one is annual clover, which is not a perennial, it's an annual. So it's very attractive and grows a lot faster. Both these are great for either a full food plot, logging roads, inside corners of fields where the farmer has a little spot left there. And then lastly, a brassica mix for the fall. So those are brand new. They're in smaller 6-pound bags. The free shipping on everything on the website, but it's a little bit different than what we've been doing. We still have our large 22.5 and 45-pound spring mix, summer mix, or summer fall. So I'm going to plant the fall mix and the spring mix in my large open fields again to get the nitro boost and the carbon load working in the soil. We got a really cool picture that I'll send you from a listener of ours who one side of the field he had in nitro boost and carbon load for 2 or 3 years, and the other side was a brand new food plot they just cleared, and you can see a very notable difference in the soil. That was pretty cool to see from a drone shot. So, but my plan is to still run with the core 1-2 system and then use my clovers. I'm going to frost seed as well very soon. So that's going to give me great clover until May when I plant the spring mix. And then also logging roads, all these roads that meander through the property. If I can get some frost seeded clover on those, that's going to be huge. So those are the 3 real new things. The only other thing we did that's pretty new is we offer some bulk pricing if guys order some larger, 5 acres, 10 acres. There's a automatic discount now on the website, which we did not have before. So that's pretty cool. And then last but not least, we added bundles. So if you're new to food plotting or new to habitat work, new to Vitalize, and you want to do better with your soil, keep attracting the deer, we bundled a few products together and they're discounted to try to help get people in the right direction. For instance, a food plot bundle is going to have a soil test, some of our liquid fertilizer, all natural, the spring and the summer mix, and then the fall mix, and some seed treatments all together. One package so you don't have to figure out how to be Al Temeshko and run through the Vitalize system. You can just go hit a button and start to get into the system. And then those are really the new things. We have a chat feature on the website too, brand new website. I guess I lied when I only said like 1 or 2 new things. There's like 5 new things. Still try to be the best we can in customer service and answer everybody's questions personally. So
awesome. Now
that's the high level stuff there, buddy.
Well, so I want to know, I guess just personally, because of deer density, right? I'm for the listener, I was in a field in December that was just chocked full of these I don't know if they're radishes or brassicas or whatever from the Vitalize, and I was just blown away that they were everywhere. Like I was like, oh my God. And my buddy Nate, he's like, yeah, we got that out late, so they should have been bigger and better. And then we've got ours in the UP where, it's like a putting green, it's mowed down to the finest of fine. Is there a way to prevent that without creating more, just planting more food, just giving more food? Because I think that has to be the answer, because I know we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing, and it's not just being, throw and grow. They're tilling it up, or Roundup, or doing everything, soil test, lime. And it's like, our food plots don't look like that. And I know Al says, they don't got to be pretty. You say they don't got to be pretty. But it's like, to go into a field and the guy's like, oh, yeah, we just put these out. They were late. And it's like, but I have to imagine that it's the deer are just eating everything. Because when we've got 10, 12, 15 deer in a field where we would see 2 or 3 before.
I love hearing that and seeing the pictures, to get someone like you who hasn't done a ton of food plots over the years to be like, what in the heck is going on? It's great, man. It makes my day. A couple things you can do. you can shoot more does, or you can make more food, or more sustainable habitat, which is usually timber work, right? So food plots are just like a supplement, like a ice cream after dinner. The main course is browse, whether it's herbaceous or woody. That's how you hold more deer per property, would be the chainsaw work and the cool season grass control. But you could fence a food plot. That might help a little bit. But I remember coming down to where you were in the UP that morning, and I'm like, there are deer everywhere around here. And then when I walked the property, I'm like, and you guys were saying, or maybe it was your dad or brother, I don't know if we have a lot of deer. I'm like, you guys have deer. You guys have lots of deer. I think, because I wasn't seeing a ton of huge rubs or anything, but it was like, it seems like they're going to hammer this. And sure enough, you put a great diverse food plot in and they smoked it. I don't know. That's pretty much how you handle that. It's tough.
Yeah.
All mine look the same.
Well, but I just want to, I mean, like I said, for the listener, I just wanted them to know, like, we've done everything that we can, and these deer, I mean, there's deer there that are eating it. It's a regular thing. But like to go to somebody else's food plot and see, like, I guess, like, and I guess it wouldn't even be like the best example, because they weren't, head size radishes or whatever. But just the volume of them, and that the deer were still eating them, and there was a ton of deer in there. But it's like, I don't ever see that, but I don't think they ever get a chance to kind of get that far.
Yeah. Yeah. If you overplant the seed rate on the brassicas too, which we don't allow with the carbon load. So the carbon load, we have everything divvied up in both the spring and the fall mix. So you plant an acre with an acre's amount, and you're going to be good. Maybe a little more if you're not drilling it. But like, it's easy for people to overseed a small bag of brassicas, and then what happens is they compete with each other, and you get golf balls instead of softballs. That's what's happening there. Or it could be too late as well. So it could be either one of those, or the deer smoke them before they even have a chance.
Yeah.
So it's usually an uphill battle when you have a high deer density, for sure.
Yeah. But like I said, I just wanted to add that in there because it's a problem. I mean, I don't know necessarily know that's a problem, but it's an issue that we're dealing with. And I just want to say that the seed has been great for us. And it was a different property that I walked that I didn't have anything to do with. And I was like, and he's like, oh yeah, I got this from Jared. It looks pretty good. I'm like, Jesus. So anyways,
yeah, appreciate the feedback, man. That's always great to hear. Mother Nature knows how to do it.
So for you and your podcast, all that stuff, and the Vitalize, where can people get a hold of you? Where can they get more information?
Appreciate that. We try to make things really simple. Habitat Podcast is the name of the podcast. That's on every platform, just like yours. And then we're like 320 episodes or something now. I can't remember what episode we're on. And then Vitalize Seed. If you Google that or go to vitalizeseed.com, everything's there. Again, we try to be cost effective. We try to be simple, transparent, and offer all the customer service we can do. That way, people who take that first step into habitat management, which is usually food plotting, have good results.
Awesome, Jared. Well, I really appreciate the time. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you, man.
Gear up for the hunt and learn from the best with Deer and Deer Hunting Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Tune in every week for expert hunting tips and unforgettable moments in the field. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment. Hit the road for fun and heartwarming fishing adventures with the Real American Road Trip.
I just want to hook up one time. I just need to hook up one time.
Catch the Waypoint Original Series every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Waypoint TV channel. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.
I did get a bite. I have gotten a bite. I did feel it.